Hi, welcome to Pueblo Grande. My name is Twig Johnson. I'll be your docent today to take you on a quick tour of Pueblo Grande Museum. Let's go and take a look around. Hi, welcome to Pueblo Grande. This is one of the things that makes Pueblo Grande unique, this big platform mound, along with our 10 major canals that we find here. So now we're actually on top of the mound. The mound would have been at least 3 stories high. It's the length of a football field. And this is a place that would probably have been used for ceremonies and also for looking over the extensive irrigation system. One of the really interesting things from the mound that you can see is this mysterious maze. It's a series of rooms that we believe held important items because people were coming from all sorts of villages, all sorts of places, including from up north, to this place. All this tells the story about how important Pueblo Grande was, that it was an incredibly important village within the Hohokam world. On your visit to Pueblo Grande, you can visit the 2 different types of houses that the Hohokams lived in. The compound adobe house to my left and the pit houses to my right. You can also see an excavated ball court and visit our gardens that contain native crops. Pueblo Grande also hosts a variety of events, classes, and programs throughout the year that highlights Native American arts, culture, the science of archaeology, and prehistoric technologies. Indoor exhibits explore archaeology, Hohokam culture, and showcase artifacts found at Pueblo Grande and other sites in the valley, with a changing gallery that rotates exhibits on archaeology and Southwest cultures. Don't forget to visit our museum store, which features authentic Native American art.
What we're looking at now is a model of the platform mound, as archaeologists think it may have looked around 1300 AD. So that would be about, 150 years after essentially the 2 mounds that began life as the current Va'aki were joined together. So it's an impressive structure. The amazing thing to note is that when you look at that map, the map with the canals, it doesn't show the extensive canal system, but it also will demonstrate that there were over 50 platform mounds in the Salt River Valley. The thing about them, though, is that they were not all as big or as elaborate as ours. And many of them were not built of the same sort of durable materials that this was, with the adobe or stone cells that were filled in, capped, and built up layer upon layer to get what this model represents, which is a roughly 3-story tall structure that is about the length of an American football field, 100 yards, and I'm going to guess maybe 30, 40 yards wide. That is an enormous structure. That's enormous. And again, this was built by people who were busy digging and maintaining canals. Of course, you can't have canals, just don't dig a canal. Forget it even today. When they drive by parts of the valley where you see a canal that's completely dry, they've stopped the water from running in it so that they can clean the canal out, so that water runs effectively and smoothly through it and isn't blocked by the debris or stuff that's in it. Well, the same was true back then. So, building, very busy building, maintaining canals. They were busy farming. The bad news about farming in the desert is, as I've said before, it's hot and it's dry. And there are not a lot of plants that like to live here, but if you can water your gardens the way the Ancestral Sonoran did, then you can bring in 2 harvests a year, sometimes 3. So you can grow a lot of food, and I think that's why the Ancestral Sonoran stayed here and thrived here. It's a very productive land if you can get water to it. But farming, I've been told, from New York City, I've been told farming is labor intensive. I don't know. But I'm sure it is. Prepare the soil, you have to sow, you have to weed, you've got to harvest, prepare the ground again. So these were busy people. They were making craft items, they were busy dealing with their neighbors, ceremonies, other social obligations, and then around 1150, 1200, they decided apparently, as a society, that this would be a good time, a good use of their spare time. This was important to them. This was very important to them, especially this one and the platform mounted Mesa Grande, which is south of the Salt River, of course, in Mesa. So the amazing thing about this is a couple of things. 3 stories tall. The only story that people could get onto was the very top one. The bottom 2, I'm going to call them stories, were just, again, fill. Rocks, cells, fill, cap with caliche, build a second layer, and then the 3rd layer, which was actually in use. In use as what? You know, I don't think archaeologists know particularly, but I think they feel that this was not a year-round residence, surprisingly enough. May have been occupied during ceremonial times of the year by priests or headmen or chiefs who were officiating there. They found a room that stored ceremonial objects up here. There's also a room on the southeast corner that you will see when you go and tour the mountain that had 2 doorways in it that the sun shone through both doorways on the day of the summer solstice. So this was multi-function, and not only that, it's at the head. I mean, Pueblo Grande is at the head of during the Classic period, about 10 canals. In fact, if you take a look at the map, almost every village on the north side of the Salt River got their water through here. On the south side, Mesa Grande, not quite in the same position, but their canal system also went through that. So there's some notion that these played a role in the construction, the maintenance of the canals, and the distribution of water. And just like it is today with us and our neighboring states fighting over water rights, not that they fought over it, but you can imagine that this was very important. So this also could have served as a center of that sort of coordination and control. Surrounding it is a wall that was in its time between 6 and 7 feet tall and 3 feet thick. You may notice, if you look at the model, that there are no doorways in the outside wall.
Welcome to Pueblo Grande. My name is Don Apple. The original mound, as well as 3 acres, were purchased by a gentleman by the name of Thomas Armstrong. He was a judge, as well as being the president of the Arizona Archaeological and Historical Society. He bought the original mound for the purpose of preservation and presented it to the city. That same year, 1924, the city engineer recommended that the city purchase an additional 10 acres that contained 2 of the original canals. This is the area that became the Park of the Four Waters. And in the early 1930s, the city decided to go ahead and make a museum. The original building was started in 1933. It has the distinction of only costing $14.95, the cost of 1 box of nails. The remaining part of the building was made of adobe, and the adobe bricks were made right on property with dirt taken from the excavation. There were a number of major excavations during the 1930s. Most of them were part of the alphabet projects that were done during the Depression. That building stayed and was here until the early 1960s when it was torn down. And the current building was built in a series of about 30 years.